Welcome to the Sens Spotlight Podcast, brought to you by the Sick Podcast Network. Before we get started, bet the beauties with Betway and scan the QR code on the screen or click on the link in the details section to create an account and download the app. Must be 19 plus. Please play responsibly. Betway is an official sponsor of your Ottawa Senators. Also, for our YouTube gang, please remember to like and subscribe. That really helps out the show. And we're back with Pierre McGuire, just recapping the game on Saturday and maybe talking about a little bit of Shane Pinto as well. So it should be a fun episode, and hit it.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. Sens Spotlight.
Here's Alfredson bursts the speed, gets a shot away, scores! Daniel Alfredson ends the game in overtime and sends the Ottawa Senators to the Stanley Cup Final for the first time in franchise history.
The sickest Ottawa Senators podcast. It's gonna be sick.
And we are joined by Pierre McGuire. It's been a little while, not that long, but thankfully you are back. Just what were your thoughts about the game last weekend?
Hard-fought game against Los Angeles. No offense, Sens aren't going to want to hear this, but I was really happy for DJ Smith, who's a friend of mine. I was really thrilled for Anton Forsberg in particular, and I thought he was a huge difference maker in that game. And the one thing that personifies that game, I thought, timely goaltending, both by Ullmark and Forsberg, but in particular, the save against Ridley Gregg late in the third period with about 5 or 6 minutes to go. When Forsberg makes that save, I'm like, okay, I know how Jimmy Hiller coaches, and I know how DJ Smith coaches, and they're going to shut this thing right down. And that's kind of what happened. But I thought that's a good game for Ottawa to play. It shows that they're not that far away. And then you consider no Tommy Shabbat, obviously no Brady Tkachuk, and you start looking at the guys that aren't in the lineup and then put them in the lineup.
Yeah,
I think it's a different Ottawa team. And that's a good measuring stick game. I know a lot of coaches don't like to use that term. That's a throwback to when I coached, but it was a measuring stick to see exactly where you were with the lineup that you had. And I thought if it weren't for Forsberg, Ottawa probably wins that game.
Yeah, and I was thinking about even during the game and after was if you have Tkachuk and Shabbat, you probably find at least one goal, maybe two, right in that low event type of game where you just can't really – the Senators difference makers, just there wasn't enough of them outside of Timmy. Drake had a really good chance too, Ridley Gregg as well, right? So I think overall, you're going to lose games in the NHL, and it's how you lose them.
Yeah.
And for the Senators, they could have easily won that game. It's the way Travis Green likes it. It's tight checking, low event. Maybe not as easy on the eye for the fans, but overall, I thought it was a really good game despite the loss. And I think if they play like that consistently, which has been a theme of late, then they're going to keep getting points and going to still have those, 11 out of 12 games picking up points. That's the way they have to play it. And they did it, even though it did suck that they lost.
I want to also build off a real positive point here because I love what you just said, Alex. So this is important. This is the second time coming up this week where this team will not have a game for 4 days. The last time they had that, we talked about it on the show. We said this is where the coaching staff has to earn their pay and make a difference. And they did. The team started to percolate, even though they were dealing with massive injuries and going through the trials and tribulations of the Pinto contract negotiation. Will he sign? Will he not sign? So there was a lot of noise around the team. But they used those 4 practice days to really kind of stabilize themselves in the standings. This is a second time in November. That usually doesn't happen twice in a season. This is the second time in November where they have 4 days off before they have to play again in Anaheim. So I'm probably thinking they're going, and you would know this better than I, they're probably going out 2 days before.
Usually that's what you do. Leaving tomorrow. They're leaving on Tuesday.
So there you go. They're going out. That's usually what you do when you have not all the time do you have that opportunity. You'll get out there. You'll have a real good skate, or you have a real good workout. You'll have a really good workout on Wednesday, but it's today, Monday, and it's tomorrow, and it's Wednesday where you get an opportunity to make your team better. And they utilize it really judiciously, I thought, the first time in early November. And it's really important now because if you look at the schedule, there's no back-to-backs on this trip. There's not one. So there's no excuse, fatigue, time zone travel, elevation. There's none of that because if you got no back-to-backs, you should be okay.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I know this year the scheduling with the Olympics, like teams typically have a say in kind of modifying schedules. I don't think, from what I've heard, is the Sens had any say in the 4-day break. So, as you mentioned, it's going to have a big impact in terms of just the season. I think for me, this road trip is very much a barometer of how good the Senators team can be. If they can win 4 games, go 4-2-1 or 4-3, just they can't have that 1-6 road trip or a 2-5 road trip. And how important do you think it is in your mind, sorry, Pierre, that this team finds a way just to gut out more results like they have been so far on this 7-game road trip?
Really important. But again, doing it without Brady and now without Tommy, that's pretty substantial too. I love what you said about Drake having an opportunity late in that game because it did matter. Ridley had obviously a real good opportunity. Those guys have to elevate. I think everyone. Claude Giroux, even though he's playing deeper in the lineup, he's playing really good hockey. He really is. Like, he deserves a pat on the back too. People aren't going to talk about it much because it's not equating to points or goals, but he's playing really good. It's a little bit like Michael Amadio. It's a little
Hmm.
like Amadio in terms of what they're doing, and they obviously play on the line with Pinto. And we'll talk about his contract later. But I'm encouraged, Alex. I am. Here's my one concern about this whole thing. They got this, those 2 major injuries, and they hurt the team. They can't have any more. They can't.
No.
I'll use a team again. I like to do this as a reference point because this is kind of what I do during the day. Is you make comparables. Look at where Toronto's roster is and look at what's happened to Toronto with the roster that they've had with the major injuries. They lost 5 straight games. They've lost 5 in a row. You can't – and they've got a murderer's row of players out. Ottawa's got 2 major ones. Can't have any more because then you get on that – it's to your point about the road trip. Then you get in that 1-6, 2-4. And you're all of a sudden like, oh my gosh, we started this road trip in the playoffs and we ended this road trip and we're out of the playoffs. Can't have that.
The one good thing though is I do think Kachuk's closer than people think. And not I don't have any inside information, but
Right.
he was practicing on Friday. And if you told me this was game 7 of the playoffs, he'd be playing that game. Right? Like
Yeah.
he looked completely 100%. I wouldn't have thought he was injured. And they have now another week, right, until Thursday. I think he wants to play in St. Louis, where he's from. That's in another week from now.
Yeah. I
Like
was going to
I
say
think
near the end of the
he's
trip. Yeah.
yeah. So I don't know if they'll have too many more games without Brady Tkachuk with the days off and the fact of the matter being that I think he's getting much closer to returning.
They're not, I will say, I'm willing to bet on this. He might look really good in the skates. They're not putting him back out there till they're 100% sure medically that nothing bad is going to happen. Because he's
Sure.
just he's too valuable. So in some cases, your point is really well taken about if this was a playoff series, he'd be playing. I get it. It's not even the middle of the season. It's the first quarter of the season. I don't see them rushing him back. That also is important though, because if those 2 4-day breaks we talked about, that basically equates to 2 weeks in the season where you really didn't lose the player. For me.
That's
And
what
so
I mean.
I know you do, and that's why I'm just trying to make it a little easier for me to understand and you to understand and the listeners. It makes a difference, and I'm encouraged by that. I am. I think that's true. You get him back, and the guys are looking at the standings and say, "Okay, now we're good to go." And I just want to throw one more thing out there because we talked about him a lot. Jordan Spence. I thought he played one of his best games on Saturday against his old team. I know it's the most he played. Played over 20 minutes in that game, probably closer to 22 minutes. Played really well. I thought he played really well.
Really well. I know, like, I'm not going to circle this every time we talk about Jordan Spence, but I've only really seen one major mess up in is he game 11, 12 now? I'd have to double check. He has 8 points in 10, 11 games, right? Like he's been a really effective player. And I think the other thing is with Shabbat out, Bruce Garriock reported it's 2 weeks, maybe more like a week and a half with the 4-day break, but you need Jordan Spence to be on your back and to create offense, right? Because I think with Thomas Chabot out, you saw it against LA. it was harder to find those offensive opportunities. You have at least Jordan Spence as another guy that can create. And I think last year that was a player they just didn't have. When Shabbat went down a couple times, Sanderson missed a game, their offense just waned because they didn't have another puck mover that could create.
Yeah.
They have that now in Jordan Spence, and he's a really important player, and I think he's playing really well. I really think, and I'm curious when Shabbat comes back what the alignments are. Do they go back to Shabbat Spence? But that's, not here nor there. But he's been a really good player, and he's going to play his former team in LA in a week, and so maybe he has another, revenge game in him, and maybe this time he can find the back of the net.
Maybe. I don't think that's why they want him in the lineup, though. I think they want him as a puck mover more than anything else, and that's positive. I like where the team's going. I like the fact that all the turbulence around the Pinto negotiation is gone. This break is good for them. I know Travis will utilize it well because he's a guy that's been through it as a coach, time zone travel, especially when you coach in the West, Vancouver in particular. There are no easy road trips. There really aren't. Because more times than not, you go, Seattle's probably your easiest one, but when you go mountains time, when you go to Calgary or Edmonton, it's still time zone. So probably your easiest trip is a one-hitter down in Seattle. And back in the day when Travis was coaching there, Seattle wasn't in the league. Like people say, oh, yeah, we're just going down to San Jose. It's almost a 3-hour flight. Like I don't think that people understand how far it is, especially those of us on the East Coast. I did it a lot over the course of, almost 35 years. And it's a lot. The travel in the West is way harder than the travel in the East. It's not even close.
I remember talking to a Penguin staffer last year, and they were saying, I think we traveled the least amount of any team in the league as almost like a badge of honor, just because, New York, New Jersey, you don't have to go very far. And then it's like Winnipeg or Calgary, you're just going these cross-country journeys just to even play teams in the Western Conference that are in your division.
So I just want to show you the difference between the old NHL when I was involved and the new NHL where I've been involved on the media side, but not on the coaching side. When I coached in Pittsburgh, we used to play and we'd always go out 2 days early, always, because we were commercial, and the league built that into the schedule. We would fly from Pittsburgh to Dallas, connect, Dallas to Calgary or Edmonton, and it was always on American Airlines. And the reason why is we would save $150 a ticket per person. Try doing that with an NHL player today.
Oh,
no chance. And no disrespect to the hotel brands back in my day, and we stayed in nice hotels, but they weren't the St. Regis, they weren't the Ritz-Carlton, they weren't 5- and 6-star hotels. They were really not pleased. They were no hardship. It was awesome.
Yeah,
our hotels
good living.
And then the third part is, back in those days, very seldom did a player get his own room. Very seldom. Now, every one of them has their own room. So you do it all. And, people say, wow, every game looks so much faster. They do, because the guys aren't half dead when they show up for the games. Back in my day, guys were beat up. Let's just say you played I'll use this as an example because it used to happen. You could have played a game in Calgary on a Saturday night. And the next day, you could have been playing a 5 o'clock start in Vancouver on a Sunday. And that game in Calgary, let's say it went to overtime, so you're probably done around 10:30. By the time you get to the airport, it's 12. You fly out west, you gain an hour. Then you're turning around and playing at 5 in the afternoon. But what people don't realize is you're not leaving that night. More times than not, you're leaving the next morning.
Yeah.
So it's a 5 o'clock wake up at your hotel to get to the bus, to get to the airport, to get to Vancouver. And that happened a lot.
Yeah. No, and people will remember the game earlier this year where they played Chicago, right? And that game was an Amazon game the night before against Boston. It basically didn't end till 10:30, 11. They didn't get on the plane leaving to Chicago till about 1. Then you get into Chicago, it's like an hour and 45-minute flight, give or take.
Yeah.
Then you get in at 3. Then you play the next, right? If you think, and they didn't play well, especially at the beginning of the game. And again, it's not an excuse. And good teams find ways to weather that almost travel storm, shall we say, right? At the same time, it plays a factor. And I'm curious to see how they do, especially just the first game of that trip. against Anaheim, who's playing really good hockey right now. But yeah, it's definitely a factor. But at the same time, with this crazy schedule, I'd rather them play this crazy road trip in November than after the Olympics in March or in January, like when you're really in the dog days of the season. And I think in a lot of ways, it's not an advantageous schedule. That would be maybe too kind of a way to put it. But they're in a good position heading into their biggest road trip and most consequential road trip of the season, a 7-gamer. And I think they're looking like they're in a good position to almost like hold the fort, to not fall by the wayside down the standings. And again, as you mentioned at the top, if they can go 3-4 or 4-3 or just hold water, they see Kachuk number 7 back on the ice at the end. You really feel like, okay, this team could not just be good, they can start going on 5-6 game winning streaks and another point streak like they did. Like they're playing really good hockey right now, and I like the way they're going.
Me too. I really do. I'm really encouraged about it. And I look at the teams around them that are leaking right now. Toronto is leaking. Tampa got smoked on Sunday against Vancouver in Tampa, 6-2. Montreal is leaking big time right now. And, I know people in Montreal like Kirby Dach, no big deal. Kirby Dach's a big deal because they just don't have that much depth down the middle right now. Eventually they will when Michael Hayes comes out and a couple other guys start to evolve as players. But they don't have a lot of depth down the middle right now. They were not expecting Caden Gooley to have surgery on his abdominal wall. They were not. I'm telling you. They thought it was going to be a 1 or 2 week thing. Now you're looking at a 6 to 8 week thing, and it could be even longer. And you've seen the amount of injuries he's had. So that's putting a lot of stress on Struble. That's putting a lot of stress on Jack-Eye. And now, what happens? And again, I hate to say this, but injuries happen. If they lose one of their top 4D now, they're life and death to make the playoffs.
But and isn't that like maybe looping this around to Shane Pinto? Isn't that why it's so important to have a guy like Shane Pinto as your third line center, like compared to Montreal, other teams where if Dylan Cousins goes out, that's a huge loss, of course. You have Shane Pinto, who I would argue, we talk about nominally what's a second, third line center. Shane Pinto's the Senators' second line center in all intents and purposes. He's their most important center outside of Stützle, and we could argue in many ways he's even as important as Stützle in many ways by going against the other team's best players. And you now have locked him up for 4 years. I think the player, rightly so, and all credit to him. He probably turned down like 60 million, right, or something like that, and is saying, I'm going to bet on myself at age 29 to get another huge contract that's even loftier and bigger at heading into free agency. And at the same time, the Senators get Pinto for a really good deal for 4 years throughout the Kachuk contract. He'll still be a Senator when Kachuk needs to re-up. Like, I think it makes a lot of sense. I think the Senators wanted a longer deal. At the same time, I think it's a deal that both sides feel pretty good about.
Yeah, you could just take it in 4-year increments in hockey. You can't go past that. It just goes too fast. Here's something that I haven't read or heard anywhere. You're free to use it. One of the reasons why Pinto was wise and his representatives were wise, there's going to be expansion. 2 teams for sure, probably more, because that's not hockey-related revenue. And so if you're coming in at $2 billion, think about the assets that are shared amongst the owners that are already established owners in the league. So players like Pinto, as long as there's not a major injury situation, those players become either more valuable to the team that they're with or extremely valuable to the expansion teams that are coming in, because the one thing those teams need to do to survive, they need to stay in games. In order to stay in games, you need to have players that can play both sides of the puck. But in particular, if they don't score, how can they help you win? And Shane, to your point, Alex, Shane's a player that helps you win.
Yeah, and I also think like some people would look at the deal and say, well, his career high is 37 points. Like he's almost halfway there this season. And at the same time, has 2 20-goal years. He's only 25. He's playing like he's been an unbelievable defensive player, right? So every year, I wrote it in a couple of my stories, like every year he's either increased his goal total to a career high, a point total, or an assist total when he's gone into the league. So every year you can see that he improves, right? And those are the guys you want to bet on. I still think right now, next year, if he plays even anywhere close to the way he is this year, and why wouldn't you believe it? He's worth $7.5 million, right?
Oh, yeah, no. 100%. And here, again, think about the center ice position for Ottawa right now. Lars Eller is your number 4. He's a Stanley Cup winner. He's still got some game. And if he's only playing 8 to 12 minutes a game, perfect. At this stage of his career, perfect. That's a valuable asset. I'll give you an example. Most people don't know who Nick Dowd is. He's a force center of the Washington Capitals. Go do an evaluation of Nick Dowd and how important he is to the well-being of the Washington Capitals. And Nick Dowd doesn't score. But go watch the things that he does do. He kills penalties. He can play up in the lineup. He's an amazing face-off guy. He can be physical when he has to, but he's not a crusher. He's a guy that just knows how to rub you out. So Lars Eller is probably like that, not as old, but Lars Eller is really useful. So you go Stützle, Cousins, Pinto, Eller. If you're Ottawa, you're lined up. Like, you got a chance. You got a chance with that center ice position. You have a chance to compete. You do.
And you also have Ridley Gregg, who hasn't played a lot of center in the NHL, but that's his natural position.
Yep.
I wonder if he has the foot speed to be a really good center iceman in the league, just with how fast the players are. But he's a smart player. He'd be fine as a third line center, right? Like, they have.
Oh my gosh, yes. No, Ridley's fine. I don't see. That's the thing too. People are putting huge emphasis now on speed quotient around the league. Like, is he fast? Is he not fast? I'll use a player that I really respect, and I've thought so highly of this player since 2005. Anssi Kopitar. You just saw him play. 20th year in the league. You can't. If you did a drag race, Anssi versus Ridley, who would win? Say Ridley would win.
Yeah,
probably.
Yeah.
So it's not so much. And I've tried to tell this to young scouts because they always get fascinated by the speed quotient of the game. It's not so much how fast the guy is, it's how fast can his brain process information. And I know one thing about Ridley. I watched him so much when I was working in Ottawa, and I really loved the way he plays. Ridley processes information really well. And I'll use a case in point that most people, it's infamous for him. You know, the thing that he did against Toronto in the empty net.
It's a smart play.
He knew exactly what he was doing. He knew exactly what he was doing. And you see how ready he was for the response. He processed that in a matter of seconds, in an emotional moment, and he knew. And I always think about that, you know, and you brought his name up. I wasn't going to even talk about Ridley. I was going to talk about other players in the league, but it's such a good point by you.
Yeah, no. And you know, so I was doing some digging, and again, analytics, I think, give you insight, but they're not the whole story. But I think this is reflective. The Amadio Pinto Giroux line is, I think, top 5 in expected goals for forward line. If you look at total like pairings, like defense and obviously forward lines, Ottawa has out of the 11 top 11, Ottawa has 3 combinations. It's Clevin Spence, it's Sanderson Zub, Amadio Pinto Giroux. But sticking on the Giroux part or that line, none of them are burners. I think Pinto is a pretty good skater. Like, he's
strong,
above average.
He's powerful. He's a Bob Gainey type skater, very powerful.
Exactly. But that line is dominating opponents, and none of them are burners. It's up here. They're really smart hockey players, and so they know how to play defense well. They know how to forecheck well. They know how to create well, right? They just know how to play the game at a really high level and can process the game really well. And that's what makes that line so effective. Is not because they're flying by guys into the neutral zone. It's because they know where to go in the neutral zone and how to get into the offensive zone, how to create, etc. That line, like, so good. I love watching them. Michael Amadio, he's my like favorite player. Just the way he plays. He's like Mark Stone light. That's what Graham Nichols always says, coming in hot. So I think that's a good way to just. How many times does he just poke pucks away from guys and steal pucks away on the forecheck? But So for me, this team, the Senators maybe lack a little bit of speed at points, but they make up for it a lot with just how many really smart hockey players they have on their team. Lars Eller too, really smart hockey player.
If you go back and look at the only time Ottawa's been in the Stanley Cup final, it was 2007 against Anaheim. I remember going on the morning show in Ottawa all those years ago and saying, before the final started, because I had done every single Anaheim game that playoff season, I'm like, everybody in the East is saying, "Oh, Ottawa's going to outskate them." No, I said, no, they're not. They won't. They will not outskate Anaheim. Anaheim's faster than Ottawa. But what Ottawa does really well, and it's allowed them to get to the final, they process the guys like Daniel or Chris Phillips or Wade Wren, like they process the game really fast. But what Ottawa was so good at in those years, they got it and moved it. They didn't have guys who were going coast to coast. They were getting it and moving it, getting it and moving it, getting them, and they frustrate the opposition defense. Now, what happened in the Anaheim series, they ran into a team that was kind of a carbon copy of them, but they also could skate better. And so that's why eventually they lose in 5 games, but they go to the final. My point is that Ottawa team reminds me a little of this team. The way that Ottawa team probably moved the puck just a little quicker, not a lot, just a little quicker. I'm kind of excited to see where this Ottawa team is when Tommy's back and when Brady's back. And then when the lineup gets set, how different they are. Because I do think this is a good team. I do.
For sure. And I guess just with the Pinto thing, like Elliot Friedman kind of, I wouldn't say wink, like he's a colleague of mine, but he on 32 Thoughts mentioned like with the Pinto deal, Ottawa is going to be very all in. How all in should they be this year? If they, let's say around the deadline, are second in the Atlantic or clearly like positioned in a playoff spot?
They should be in because this is a really turbulent year. And you look at their division in particular, there's turbulence already. Tampa's in a turbulent situation. Florida Panthers are in a turbulent situation. Nobody expected Boston to be in a playoff position. Boston's in a pretty good spot right now. They're really running on all cylinders and won 7 in a row, I think, if I remember correctly. So, you look at where they are, there's potential to really do damage. And I'm not a big fan of any of the teams in the Metro. Look at Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's overachieved. And a big reason why is Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin have life. Erik Karlsson, and this is an Ottawa tie-in, Erik hasn't played this well in a long time. And I think it's because he's a really happy guy. The coaches have found a way, whether it's Todd Nelson, whether it's Mike Stothers, those are the 2 defensive guys in the staff. They found a way to get Erik to play at another level, and he's made a difference. So that's a team that wasn't even supposed to be in the playoffs. Like everybody's their lottery again. Well, based on what they're doing right now, they're not a lottery team. That could change, but right now they're not. So why should Ottawa be all in? They should be all in because there's an open door. There's a pathway to win. Doesn't mean you're going to win the cup, but there's a pathway to get to the end of the road here in a good way, not a bad way.
But think about it. I still think Florida will find a way to make the playoffs, but they're in tough. Tampa Bay's those 2 teams. Out of those 2 teams, Toronto, I maybe they turn it around. I think they're, who knows? But I'd be not shocked. I think right now their chances of making the playoffs are below 50%. And
I'm shocked. I'm shocked by what's going on in Toronto. I'm not going to lie to you. And
really?
And if they don't make the playoffs, I can tell you right now with a clear conscience, I misread that team unbelievably. I thought they were going to find a way to overcome the 102 points lost from Mitchell Marner leaving. And internally, that's not happening right now. No. Austin hasn't been good. Austin has not been good. I mean, he needs to be better, and he's not. And now, obviously, he's hurt. Matthew Nyes has been a bitter disappointment. The other night against Chicago, I was looking at it. Nyes had no shots. Michelli had no shots. Nylander had no shots. Those are 3 guys you need to score or manufacture offense in order to win. 3 of them had no shots against Chicago. You're not winning. You have no chance to win.
Can I just say, sometimes I'm right, okay? I'm not always right. I'm sometimes I make dumb takes. But I had Luke Fox on earlier in this show. It's at the beginning, I think 5th or 4th episode, I forget. And we basically went back and forth like who's better, Ottawa or Toronto. And I said, I didn't think Toronto would be this bad at this point. But I'm like, all their defensemen are older. They have no clear number one defenseman. I love Chris Tanev, but he's a really good complementary piece. Mm-hmm. They brought in Michelli, Dakota Joshua, Nick Waugh. Good players. None of them are even close to Mitch Marner. And they still don't have that much depth. And so if a Matthews or a Nylander goes down, they have nobody. They're not a deep team. And if you look at Ottawa, right, where it's already been test proven right now, Tkachuk goes down, they're 9-6-4, right? Like they're a good team. If you look at up and down the roster, they have Shane Pinto on the third line. No one like how long have the Leafs looked for a third line center outside of Ryan O'Reilly, right? I just feel their team is.
Go ahead. No, finish up.
I was just gonna say, I just think Ottawa was a much deeper team, and I think in the regular season, you need depth because there's gonna be injuries, right? And I looked at Toronto, and they're one Matthews injury away. The goalies always get hurt, right? Like I just could see it falling apart, and I don't like their defense. And look at Ottawa, and I like Jake Sanderson. He's pretty good at hockey. He's much better than any defenseman on the Leafs. Like I just felt they were deeper, better, and more, I guess, resilient than the Leafs. And so far, it's proven out.
Absolutely. I totally agree. But we start this whole thing because should Ottawa go all in? And you've made a really good argument for why they should go all in. You don't know what you're getting with Florida. You don't know what you're getting with Tampa. Montreal, you don't know. They've lost 3 in a row, and they're starting to take on a lot of water, and they've decimated by some key injuries. And then obviously, nobody thought Toronto. Even though you may have predicted stuff.
Yeah, I didn't think they'd be this bad.
Nobody thought that. Nobody thought that. And so if I'm Ottawa and I'm looking at the Metro too, I'm not afraid of anybody in the Metro.
No.
Zero. So the window, like I said, the window to get to the end of the finish line is big time. And Ottawa could be in a really – that's why I believe, and that's why I think they should be more all in. And one other thing to your point, which I thought, Alex, again, is a very good point, depth matters. David Bell does a really good job coaching in the American Hockey League with the types of players that they have right now. But you're not overwhelmed with huge depth at the American Hockey League. You're winning games because of coaching and esprit de corps and guys that care about one another. You do. That's why you're winning right now. That might not translate at the end of the year either because they're going to get injuries too. So Ottawa's not used to be, Ottawa's got all these reinforcements that are young, that are good. Well, they're all in the NHL now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, and that's the one thing. And again, we've said this a lot. They don't have a lot to trade. Again, I still think a hockey trade makes more sense. I mean, I've actually really liked Fabian Zetterlund last 3-4 games, but he's a guy that you can trade as part of a bigger deal. Even Dylan Cousins, I think if it makes sense, if you feel like you're getting an upgrade, you probably want Cousins on the team with another impact forward. But we've talked about it. It's another top 6 winger, maybe a center. You can get a center and figure it out, and another right shot defenseman. And I don't know what.
That's the thing. I'm so happy you brought that up. I know we talked about it early on with our relationship. I said, right D is going to matter. I was always a big Jordan Spence guy. I was so happy they got him. But they desperately need another right shot. And that's not a knock on Jensen. This is just a reality of 35 years of age and hip surgery. And right now he doesn't have the same pop in his game. Doesn't mean he can't get it back. Like I'm always going to err on the side of respect with those older players because of what they've done, and he's had a magnificent career. For a guy that came out of St. Cloud State that nobody thought would even play for Detroit, I mean, if you look at it from the start of his career to now, it's a really special career. He should be so proud of it. But I don't know how long he holds up. I just don't know.
Yeah, I still think that's the position they at. I don't know. They're scoring goals right now. All the analytics would tell you they're getting a bit shooting lucky. Like they have a really high shooting percentage, and last year they were dead last in 5-on-5. So I don't know. It's probably in the middle, but I still think they're missing one more impactful forward just to balance things out. and another right shot defenseman. Can you do both at the same time? I don't know. The one thing they have,
it'd be hard. It's going to be hard to do that.
They do have 3 third-round picks, and I wonder if you use 2 of them on a right shot, like a good NHL right shot defenseman that maybe is a 4-5 type of thing, and then you use the rest of your draft capital on like a really proven, like you go all in for whoever the player be. Like if Alex Tuck doesn't stay in Buffalo, if whoever, right? The problem is there's going to be a lot of people competing for him because everyone's so competitive. It's like who's selling, right? And I asked Steos that, was like, what's the problem? Like there's so much parity. How do you kind of bring in guys? And he's like, well, that's gonna be a conundrum. So
he didn't use that word, did he?
No, he did not.
I did not think so.
He meant it. Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. That's good.
Yeah. But I think the Sens will go all in, and they should, right? The window to compete is now. You have Tkachuk for another couple of years, and so should be a good one. I guess we've hit the Pinto extension. I think we've hit everything. So big game against Anaheim late night. I love those. Can't wait to pop some melatonin at the end of the night. Is there anything else, just Pierre, before I let you go, just on kind of moving forward?
I just think that it's an exciting time for the team right now. I know they're coming off a disappointing loss on Saturday, but that game could have gone either way. The biggest thing is really be smart in terms of how you utilize your practice time between now and obviously Thursday night in Anaheim. But I'm really excited for Brady to get back. Your report to me today is something that I hadn't heard, so that's really exciting that he's closer to playing than not playing. I don't know how long Tommy's going to be out, but they got to have to get Tommy back at some point. You can see they miss him. But I'm really encouraged. Again, you do these breakdowns of all these teams in the East, just the East, because I know you play against the West, but playoffs, I'm thinking playoffs. Ottawa sets up well. They set up a lot better now than maybe they did at the beginning of the year.
You know, it's sometimes like you speak it out loud on a podcast and it formulates in your brain. I was just like, oh yeah, there's no one in the Eastern Conference that is overwhelming. I think the only one is presuming Florida makes it in. That's the team where it's like, shit, I don't know if I love the Senators' chances. But outside of playing Florida, could they beat Carolina? Could they beat New Jersey? Could they beat New York? Could they beat Pittsburgh? Could they beat Boston, Montreal? Like, of course, they're right there, right?
They can beat all those teams. They can beat all those teams. Here's just the one thing that I think is really important going forward. This team's good. They've learned how to adapt and overcome through major injuries to their star players, which I think is beneficial. It doesn't hurt. It actually helps the team because it shows other guys what they need to do and that they can do it. And so I'm looking at this going, I'm really encouraged. I'm really, really excited for this team.
Yeah.
You know, and Michael Andlar, here, this is the last one I want to leave you with, Alex. And I've been saying this since last summer because I do all these breakdowns of all the rosters. This is the first time I've said this in 37 years. It's not so much about the trade deadline. It's not so much about the players. It's not so much about the coaching this year. It comes down to, do you have an owner that can see further down the road to give you the budget to go out and spend to get other players? That's number one. Number two, do you have a general manager who's creative enough to utilize the assets they have internally to make your team better? And number three, do you have a pro scouting staff that's good enough to provide information to the general manager who's going to make the decision and the owner who's going to spend the money? So it's the first time I felt this in my career where, as much as the players and the coaches matter, the big moves that are made before the deadline to enhance your organization, it's going to be made by the owner opening up the pocketbook, the general manager trusting the pro scouts, and the pro scouts having a vision to sell to the GM. It's the first time I've ever said that in my whole career.
Yeah.
And if they do, if Ottawa can, and I know Michael really well, Mr. Andlar, he's a smart, aggressive guy that wants to win. He wants to win. He desperately wants to win. So it's going to be interesting, but that's going to be this for all the fans. Everybody's going to talk about players. They're going to talk about coaches. They're going to talk, all that matters, but it doesn't matter more than a smart owner a really smart GM, and pro scouts that can see, down the road enough to give you a chance to win.
I think the two things, just being around Adam Lauer, like I've interviewed him once. I've been around him a bunch of times, obviously around Steos a lot. I think it's really important to have that the decision maker is ultimately the general manager more than the owner. And I think he trusts Steos enough to say, hey, I might disagree or I might see something different, but like I'm giving you the car keys to do what you think is right. And at the same time, I think with Michael, if the Sens are a good team like they are this season, I don't think money's going to be something holding back the Senators. Maybe if they're rebuilding, maybe in their mushy middle, I think with a small market, it might be. I don't think he's going to be like, oh, we can't afford this guy because, we want to go for the Stanley Cup. We want to go all in, but we can't afford something. I don't think that to be the case. I might be proven wrong, but I think that's where this team's at right now. And that's a really exciting place to be. Like just to.
So you're agreeing with what I'm saying, because I agree with you. It's more this year about owners saying yep, about general managers understanding what needs to happen, and pro scouts that have good vision and can gather good intel. Yeah. Never said that before in 37 years, but I am now this year.
Maybe it's the parity. Maybe it's you can't just
have it is. And we haven't had expansion. You remember when you don't have expansion, the talent bucket around the league gets full. And when the talent bucket's full, it leads to parity. So you have the talent bucket being full and the salary cap and no expansion. Yep. This is what you have.
I will say, like, I don't love watching the LA Kings, but outside of them, for the most part this year, there's so many good hockey players that are like going under the radar that you're like, oh yeah, Morgan Geeky's really good, right? Like those types of players.
Using that young man's having, holy mackerel, what a
for year. Sure. But even with 32 teams, you look at the Senators, you look at a bunch of teams. It's like, oh yeah, that guy on the fourth line or on the third line, he's a really heck of a good hockey player. This team's middling. Like it's.
So I just want to throw one out there now that you brought that out. As you know, I do all the Pittsburgh Penguins pregame shows. Ben Kindle was the 11th overall pick this past draft. Nobody had him making the NHL. Not too small, not quick enough. Great point getter down the road. Ben Kindle is one of the true early season revelations in the National Hockey League. And man, is he good. Yeah. Oh my gosh, is he a good player? So it's to your point. It's great. That's a great way to look at it.
Kyle Dubas, known Sens fan. One day he will trade Erik Karlsson. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. But I know Kyle Dubas. He grew up a Sens fan, so that's maybe he can help the Sens out if Pittsburgh falls by the wayside. But it doesn't look like it.
Our next meeting's on Friday morning, you and I.
Friday morning. Yeah, let's do it. So it's the 1:30 a.m. Eastern to 9 a.m. I'm really excited for this one. I am not going to be drinking a cup load of coffee before.
Okay,
I'm a bit jittery. You guys know why. But Pierre, thanks so much for taking the time and doing this. Can't wait for Friday. And thanks again.
Always for you, my friend. Take care, Alex. Thank you.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Sens Spotlight on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.